Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale from 1 million to 1 trillion. We are living very special times, going through a pandemic crisis, and we are bringing you the best tools, best practices, and executives, CEOs, leaders to help you understand how to leverage this opportunity to scale up or to be prepared to scale up in the post-war time. Today we have a very special guest to help us with this topic. His name is Philippe Gelis, the CEO of Kantox. Philippe has been in the show before in a peacetime context, and now it's time to get him back in a wartime context. Philippe, welcome again to the show.
Hello, my pleasure.
So just to give a quick intro to the audience, and we definitely invite you to look to the previous episode with Philippe to get to know even more about Kantox and about his career. But just a quick overview so people get the context if they are just listening to this podcast episode.
So Kantox is a fintech company, very much focused on B2B. And what we do in a nutshell, we build software solutions for companies to manage better foreign exchange, and in particular, anything related to foreign exchange risk, market volatility, to make sure they protect their revenue and profit margin against market, let's say, turmoils, which are right now, I would say, at the climax. So right. We started in Barcelona. In London, we are 9 years old as a company, 120 people, more than 10 million in revenue, because I know you are very focused on scale up and revenue.
Right.
And, I would say now going through a bit of challenging times, but I would say we are quite a resilient company in that sense. So we are really preparing more for the rebound.
That's well done. And how is this? You were saying that this is a huge opportunity in a certain way, because what you do is also to mitigate risk for your clients. How is the pandemic affecting your business and Kantox? So is it being an opportunity? Is it being a threat? Or at this stage, it's much more a crisis of confidence and you don't see yet a clear pattern on your business?
So look, we are a business which is... So as we said, serving B2B clients, most of our clients are, I would say, of quite a decent size. So our, let's say, support are companies with revenue in the tens and hundreds of millions. We also have some clients with revenue in the billions. So we are affected, as I would say, most companies, just because we have clients in many different industries, including travel. So as you know, travel is an industry which is more or less on hold. I mean, it has almost stopped. So these clients that are now basically stuck, but they don't do much business. If they don't do much business, they don't need a lot of foreign currencies. So basically, we have less business with them, but we are, I would say, quite balanced in our client portfolio. So we have clients which have definitely much less business than before, but we also have clients in food, logistics, chemicals, or some kind of e-commerce where they have more business than before. So we are quite a lean company. Our growth is not much driven by huge spendings or marketing, and this is definitely a big asset right now. So what we are doing in this week, so in the last 2-3 weeks, and probably in the coming weeks, is making sure we are going through this, I would say, big storm in quite a safe way. So we are well funded, so we are quite strong in that sense, but anyway, we have frozen some hirings and some expenses just to make sure we save some extra cash in the coming weeks. And what we are doing is making sure we are not cutting anything that will generate future growth when the market will rebound. So to make a long story short, we are making sure we are saving some cash as most companies, but we're also making sure that we get ready for the rebound. So for some examples, we are doubling down on internal trainings to make sure our sales and marketing teams are even better for when really clients will massively come back. So it's really an interesting time for us because risk management is really something which is on top of the list. not only because of what's happening right now in the pandemic, but also because in that kind of context, finance directors and treasurers are mainly thinking risk. And FX is one of that risk. And so we are quite convinced that for us, when the market will normalize, risk will be definitely on top of the list. And so it will be quite an interesting opportunity for us.
It's really interesting. And so typically when we were thinking about what are the industries that are doing well or doing badly with the crisis, we think about the companies as being part of that list. For instance, in your case, I would attach your solution to the fintech space, but of course you serve different verticals, as you were saying, and it depends on your customer base and what are the verticals to what you are providing those services. Are you thinking of readjusting a little bit the strategy in terms of your core customers or the verticals that you serve, in order to be stronger after the crisis or for the rebound, as you were saying, or would you keep with the same core customers during and after the crisis?
I would say that one of the things we are naturally doing is we are now focusing on, let's say, these industries that are in some way either benefiting or not being too much impacted by the pandemic. So naturally, this will create some kind of balance in our portfolio. So for example, travel at a large sense was one of our big industry historically. In the coming months, we know that the new clients will come from other industries. And it's interesting because in the last 2 weeks, we keep on signing new clients. Less than 2 months ago, but we keep on signing new clients. So naturally, what will happen in the coming months, 6, 12 months, is that industries where maybe we were not as strong before will keep on growing. And so when we will look at our portfolio in 12 months, we will be much more balanced than what we were before. And I think it's quite an important thing, a message. I was reading an interesting article this week saying that if you think about the tech industry recently, and in particular in B2B and in software as a service, being super specialized in one industry was, let's say, something considered a strength, and now it's definitely considered a weakness. Imagine that you are selling software to, let's say, to restaurants, for example. Now, basically, you will not sign any client for months. So what before was a strength and in some way generated some kind of premium for your company, now will probably imply a discount.
Absolutely.
So being really well balanced between many industries, and this is what we have already in Kantox, and I think we will double down on this to be even more balanced in the future, is definitely a strength.
Absolutely, that's really interesting. And as you know, I'm a strong advocate about radical focus and scaling up, very focused on a specific vertical, and only later on starting adding new verticals. And I need to recognize, of course, that in this situation, diversity and risk mitigation, as you said, it's really important and a luxury to have. Unless you decided the vertical that is doing very well with the crisis, and you were lucky, and you could be scaling even more. For instance, Zoom and Slack, so that this is their moment, and they can be even more focused. Of course, they serve different verticals. It's not a good example, but the remote workplace or e-commerce for groceries and healthcare, pharmacies, etc.
But for me, it's not only about the vertical in terms of industry. It's also the profile of the clients. I think that there is one specific kind of SaaS companies that will struggle a lot in the coming months.
Correct.
The ones that have been focusing a lot on selling to startups and relatively young tech companies. Because in the previous period where it was, let's say, a very nice period in terms of cash availability and fundraising and things like that, there are many tech companies that have been focused on selling to other tech companies. And a lot of these companies will just struggle, disappear, reduce their spending. So if a big share of your business is selling to other startups, I think you are in a very, very complicated moment because most of your market will vanish very, very soon. So it's not just about industries using the, let's say, the old school definition, which is tourism, food, logistics, but it's also what kind of companies you are serving. Because I mean, startups will really go in the ice age, in the coming 12 or 24 months. So they will probably spend much less on software that are not really core business for them.
Absolutely. Yes, it's kind of a matrix, a combination between the profile of the company or the size, even SME enterprise or startups, as you were saying. And definitely across our portfolio, I can see a trend. The ones who are serving enterprise customers are relatively more stable unless they are serving enterprise customers in the airline or travel space. But SMEs, and especially with the cash crisis that we will be facing, everyone is postponing payments and trying to anticipate payments and cut costs to extend the runway. Of course, the SMEs are usually the weakened part of the ecosystem, right? And we might see a domino effect in the upcoming weeks.
Definitely, yeah. There is this study of, I think it's JP Morgan, saying that in the US, SMBs are more or less 27 days of cash runway.
The cash buffer, yeah.
I mean, it's a very, very, I would say, high level number because in SMEs and SMBs are many, many different things. But I think it's a reality. There are just many businesses, if cash stops going through, they cannot survive very long.
Absolutely. And especially the ones who are a little bit earlier thinking about scale-ups who might be post-Series A, but still not being able to go upstream and serve enterprise customers, or are still in that transition unless they start already with enterprise customers. But I would say in SaaS, it's the most common way, starting with SMBs and then trying to go upstream. This can have a huge impact. Not to talk about the ones who might be already preparing or negotiating or almost closing a funding round at this stage. So I know that you closed a round some weeks ago, so it was a perfect timing, correct?
It was in December. Yeah, it was December. So we always had this philosophy of always be cash rich. So we prefer always raising a bit more money than eventually what we will need. We prefer diluting a bit more, but being really resilient in terms of cash. So we did it in December, and so the timing was good. But definitely, companies that need to raise money now, I mean, in the coming weeks to survive, I think it's almost impossible. So my understanding of the market dynamics now is you are in big trouble if you are one of these companies which is still not super clear in terms of product market fit or sales engine. If you are very early stage, you are just starting, and really what you need is to raise a bit of family and friends just to build a team of 3 or 4 people and start building something, I will say you are in a good position because there will be basically in the coming 18 or 24 months many less demand for talent. So you will in a much easier way find talent. You will have time to develop something without any kind of pressure, just because the market will cool down a lot. And so when you will start having eventually a product, a good market fit, and then you will have to raise your first real round with professional investors, maybe in 18 or 24 months, you will be in a good position. And you will also, by nature, start building your company in a very lean way. So I think that someone that wants to start a business, a startup right now, or that has just started and can do it in a very lean way, I will not be shy in doing it because I think it's a very good time. And these kind of companies will benefit from being lean and from having a lot of talent available in the future. If you are big enough and you have a very clear product market fit, and you really know how to deploy money and how your sales engine is working, okay, eventually you have to scale down a bit and to be more cautious, but I think you're also in a position that's not too bad, except definitely if you were going to raise money now and you are short of cash. So big problem for these companies that, as you say, when you raise a Series A, for example, in many cases, you don't have a product market fit. You have an idea of product market fit, you are still exploring, but many things are still very unclear. And eventually, even in a Series B, when you look at the last 2 or 3 years, there were companies doing a seed, and 10 months later, a Series A, and 10 months later, a Series B. Right. And very often, at that time, when you are doing a Series B, you're not already at the time when you understand very well your business, your unit economics, and your sales engine. So these are the companies, in my view, that will struggle a lot because investors will first focus on companies in their portfolio or companies with a very clear product market fit. So for the ones that are in the middle, I think it will be very, very challenging. Without saying that the types of companies that were just focused on top line, but with unit economics that eventually will never turn profitable, mobility, delivery, all these things, wow, I think it will be an extremely challenging time. And I think we will see some large ones basically bankrupting and disappearing. When you see what happened, I think with Bird or Lime last week, I'm not sure what one it was. I mean, these companies, when you need a lot of investment in assets, when your unit economics are very bad, but you are selling a very long-term plan, I mean, this is not a story that will sell anymore in the coming 1 or 2 years, and eventually ever. I think these times are over, and I think it's healthy, to be honest.
Absolutely, and it's good to have in mind, and you are a veteran in the ecosystem in Europe. That
I'm not so old there, but I mean, I have some years of experience indeed.
You know that I'm passionate during these times, and the ones who are following me on LinkedIn of the wartime and peacetime leadership style and what to do in both times, and that's why the veteran I was kind of, but definitely you have started very early on in the ecosystem in Barcelona and in London, and it all started in a time that we were facing and still recovering from the economic crisis of 2008 that Europe, and especially Southern Europe, Spain, Italy, Portugal, or even France, in a big way. And 2011 was even very difficult years, and 2012, 2013, the recovery was not very easy. And if I'm not wrong, you started up Kantox around those years, and we were always saying that this was a competitive advantage. So finding out a very good job was not so easy at that time. So talent was much more available. Also, you didn't have nothing to lose. If you didn't have a job, why not try your dream? So it definitely, in times of crisis, there is a huge opportunity. And I love what you said about this is the right moment of trying to go from 0 to 1 or starting up and trying to find product market fit. Cool. That's a very good and inspiring message. So going to our 3 critical ingredients, we are already discussing this is a different context, but radical focus, world-class leadership, and culture of execution still apply very much in a wartime. So you said that in terms of radical focus, the way you were reprioritizing or redefining your priorities in the new context, you said that you are, of course, protecting your cash as much as you can, and cutting costs where expenses might not be necessary.
We have not really cut costs. What we have done, we have said, look, we have a good cash position. Mm-hmm. We have a very good product market fit. We want to be ready for the rebound. So what we will just do as, let's say, simple measures is hiring are frozen and expenses are frozen. So basically the cost base is now completely flat, because what we want to make sure is, given our position, which luckily is strong, we want to make sure we are ready to react at any time if we see an opportunity. So for me, it's really managing the company and managing, let's say, the investment and the P&L on a weekly basis. Every week we reassess, we try to understand if the market is normalizing. We want to be able to understand when there is some kind of eventually signs of rebound. And again, because we are in a good position, if you are in a company where you have little cash and you are burning a lot, it's a different game.
Right,
but
correct.
what shows that you need to understand that it's all about now flexibility. So if you need to make some cuts, you do it. And then it's all about being flexible and adapting constantly.
Good. And I love the way, because I believe that usually in these situations, some people panic, and it's human. But this is also a great opportunity to prepare the future, to prepare the post COVID-19 and the post pandemic crisis to be even stronger. And it's usually also during tough times that we build amazing teams, or we strengthen the culture that we have built over the years. How are you keeping everyone focused, positive, and engaged in this new situation? Because everyone in the team faces this kind of situations in a different way. So how are you assuring that everyone is focused on the future, as you said?
So first, there are some simple things. As you said, what's very important as a company leader is not to panic and to show people in the team that really you are quiet, you are analyzing, you're not panicking at all. This is very important in terms of, name it as you wish, but behavior, right, body language, they have to feel that you feel comfortable. This is the first thing. Then for me, then it's important also to show that you are strong and resilient. So communicating in even a more transparent way to your team about the company cash position and run rate, to really show them that they don't have to be worried about the company and their job. We are here for the long run, and we are ready to go through this crisis, definitely. And then the first thing I have done, and I think it's probably a very interesting way to really try to generate the right dynamic, is to identify several things which are important for the long run, but that were not necessarily the focus until recently. So the focus was drive revenue growth and drive the top line. And very often when you do this, you don't focus enough on some important, let's say, processes and measures. So some examples. We have never really focused on collection and days of sales outstanding. Why? Because in the end, it was never an issue. I mean, days of sales outstanding was never out of control, but we knew for long that we could have improved it a lot, but it was just not a focus. Look, now it's a moment when probably it's time really to focus on this, because if we want to grow on the long run and be resilient, this is in some way a very good way to be, leaner and not to need so much capital, because if clients pay you quicker because you have stronger processes. And that what we have discovered is that with very simple things, which is changing a bit the processes and using different kind of technology, you can improve it a lot. So for example, now we are putting in place direct debit. So instead of asking clients to pay us invoices through wires, we are putting in place direct debit. It's simpler for clients, much easier. It creates much less friction, and it's very good for our cash position. In terms of sales, what we said before, we had clients in some industries that are now struggling. So I really sold it as an opportunity internally, that now it's a very good opportunity to rebalance our portfolio by focusing on other industries that are now not impacted so much or benefiting from the crisis. And really sell it as a way to be stronger in 12 months and to have a much more balanced client portfolio. So really identifying 2, 3, 4 things that are important for the long run and maybe that were not a top priority until recently. And now you put them really as challenges to your team. And it's really a way to create a different and positive dynamic by creating some kind of new common goals and making sure people are focused on these goals.
Got it. And I know that in terms of future, we discussed it in the last episode of the podcast that you were also planning in the long term to expand to the US. So these are also perfect times to prepare this with detail, to talk with different people, to understand what is the talent needed to win there. Is this also part of your thought process nowadays?
I would say yes and no. Yes and no in the sense that in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have really been working on how we make sure that we are in a strong position to go through this crisis. We readjust the things that are really important. Things like the US, that was something I would say more for next year. It's still something we want to do. But I would say in the last weeks, I have not focused too much time on this because it was not a priority. But you're right. In the end, it will be an interesting time to think about it because, again, I was speaking yesterday with my team and I said, look, something which will be very interesting for us is that in the coming 3, 6, 12 months, competition will decrease. Competition will decrease because even if we don't have companies that are really doing exactly the same and building the same kind of software, conceptually, any bank is a substitute to us. So if you don't want to use a software to manage FX, you use your bank. But what will happen in the coming months is that first, some substitute or competitors will disappear, and banks will be much more focused on managing risk and loans and credit and stuff like this, and not at all on building new technology or investing in new technology. So in the end, the competitive landscape in 1 or 2 years will probably be even much more attractive for us than what it would have been without a pandemic, just because there will be less people focusing on technology in the FX space.
Got it. It's a very good point, and we always can see the same reality as a threat or as an opportunity. And maybe in terms of input, in terms of world-class leadership, is really pointing out and it starts with ourselves, right? So pointing out our mind to where is the opportunity, because we can't change the reality, but we can think about the reality and we can reframe or redirect our mind and our emotions to where it makes sense. And as a consequence, as an example, it will help your team do the same. So love the exercise of looking for where the opportunity is and reassessing where we are. And something
in some way, to be honest, I would say that in terms of leadership and management, I enjoy personally that crisis. I mean, I'm not speaking about what's happening in terms of
right, of course,
public health and also, you know, we will have some impact in revenue. So if you think on our year-on-year growth as a business, it will definitely be negatively impacted, and this means that in some way, eventually in the future, some kind of delay in our growth story and so valuation. But if you think about leadership and management, I really enjoy it quite a lot because it has completely broken our day-to-day, forced everyone to work from home, created some new challenges and opportunities. It has really brought us out of our habits and comfort zone. It has created this kind of, I would say, positive tension and pressure. So really, in terms of leadership and management, I would say that I have enjoyed quite a lot the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's really an interesting experience.
Great. It shows that you enjoy being a wartime leader. You also have been doing a great job in both times because since Kantox exists, you have been leading through peace times and wartime. Cool. And in terms of you were talking about our last ingredients, the culture of execution or the rhythms, culture, etc. Are you doing dailies, or have you been doing dailies in the first days since the lockdown emerged, or all ends every week? Anything changed on your rhythms, or did it all stay the same?
So I think that if you want to transmit some kind of confidence to the team and show that in the end you're not panicking, you should not change everything completely. So what I mean is we have maintained our usual let's say, management framework, which is our monthly world team presentation and review, and the same for management and blah, blah, blah. What I have done is, in some cases, I have communicated a bit through my, what I name my CEO channel in Slack, which is a channel I use when I want to share some important information in terms of our company resilience and cash position. But I have tried not to fundamentally change the day-to-day, because I want people to feel that we just keep on going in the same direction. Okay, we are all working from home, so we are not all together anymore, but there is no reason to try to change everything. I mean, we have done some adjustments. We have added maybe some new reporting tasks and processes, but I try to maintain what we already had, because if not, you give the impression that you try to change everything because you are panicking. That's not the case. The main difference for us is really that we are not together, we work from home, which is the case for most startups. So you change a bit the channels you use to communicate, but I don't want to change fundamentally the framework, because there is no reason to do so.
Got it. Very interesting perspective. Super interesting, because we have been also seeing a lot of trends, and we tried this in the past to encourage people to have dailies and weekly all ends, and there was a lot of resistance, and now I'm seeing this happening a lot. But I love your perspective about keeping the routine, keeping the same routine, because people will feel that they are in the same context and more confident, more secure about the future. Amazing. And we come to the end of the show. As you all know, we always our favorite question is what advice would you offer to your younger self? I will innovate a little bit here and without preparation, because we had you, Philippe, in December, January, in the podcast. Would you like to summarize any advice for any CEO that is nowadays fighting outside to leverage this crisis as a CEO and as a company, but at the same time might be suffering because their business are being very affected by the crisis? So do you have any final remark or final advice for those people who are tuning in?
I would say two things, and it's a summary of what we have already said. But first, if you have a cash issue, make all the cuts needed as soon as possible to make sure that you can stay in business, you can go through this crisis, survive, and then eventually rebound after the crisis. And even if it's tough and challenging, you should do it as soon as possible, and you should really explain to the people that will stay in the company that all these cuts have been really done to protect the company and protect the jobs of the ones that are staying. So again, lucky us, it's not our case, but I know many startups will be in that situation, and I think you should now really manage your cash burn to make sure you have at least 18 months of runway. Less than this, I think it's not enough. And then really take a step back to think how you can internally turn this crisis in an opportunity. And again, identify 2, 3, 4 things that you consider are big opportunities to improve and to learn from this crisis. In our case, again, it was balancing even more our portfolio and working on days of sales outstanding and this kind of thing. So you have to turn challenges in opportunities. So really identify, and each company is different, what you can do to really motivate your team and make sure that for them, this is a crisis yet, but this is also an exciting time to prove themselves and to improve really the company resilience and long-term opportunity.
What an amazing summary. Philippe, thank you so much for making the time to share with you how you are living through this pandemic crisis and helping other CEOs be better equipped to face it. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
And to our community, thanks for being there. We keep bringing you the best of the best, so you can be in the best shape possible fighting this crisis with your team and with all of us. Stay healthy and keep scaling.